Thank you for attending Worldwide Slot Car Chat number 67. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. Gang's all here pretty much. We got Kelly, Mike, Steve, Dawn, Dewan, John, Gaza, Jeremy, Garth, Wayne, Chris, people, and we have a new member, Frank. We're going to have him do his intro. We might as well have him just do it right off the bat. So, Frank, whenever you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us all about Frank's slot car related history, as much or as little as you want to share.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, about 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to get back into some kind of racing. I had done RC racing 25, 30 years ago. Really hadn't done much slot car racing at all. I may have had an HO set when I was 7 or 8. But then when I went out and saw how much and the sophistication of the new RC cars, I said, I got to try something else. So I started looking into slot cars and what was available on eBay and used and all that. And I went, oh, this looks a little fun. So I went out and got some used cars, bought anything and everything, and quickly found out what runs, what doesn't run, what I shouldn't have bought, what I need to buy. And actually, at one point, in looking for used cars, I spoke with a gentleman in LA. His name is Elgin, and he was selling a couple of the crash-resistant cars for a good price. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to LA, see them, and pick them up if they're good or whatever. While there, he had a Skeletrix, a digital track set up in his garage. I went, wow, this is very interesting. And so I quickly got into digital very quickly. He and I have since become very good friends, and we get together either at his track that we built in his garage or my track that I now have in mine. And from that, getting together, fooling around with magnet cars, not realizing non-magnet was the way to go at the time. And digital, we rarely did digital because it was just the two of us. He had a gentleman from the Far Out Race Car Club here in Southern California, which is a non-mag club, buy a bunch of tracks from him, from Elgin, to build a track that he was going to use in the Far Out Club. And Elgin told me a little bit about the guy, so I called him. His name is Brian Blanchard, and he built a 4-lane Riverside Raceway replica, close to it, not with a lot of scenery, but just to race. Yeah, I know. And I was in there when I loaded the basket. And that got me into the Far Out Race Car Club magnet. And that is just a blast racing with all those guys. They race every 2 weeks. And now, of course, I've got about 40 or 50 race cars set up for the 8 classes that they run. Well, hello, Dennis. So anyway, I raced with the Far Out Race Car Club. Hey there. And then from that, people who raced there raced out at Buena Park Raceway, and that's where I met Dennis Sampson and have raced with him out there with LMP cars. And I got into the hard body with Keith Tanaka out of Buena Park. And then we also have a magnet club in Culver City called Big Lou's that I race with every once in a while. That's basically my story, and Dennis has helped me out quite a bit. He's built a chassis for me on one, and whenever I have questions, he is very willing to answer them, and he's helped mentor me in slot cars and how to run.
Oh, thank you. And Frank has helped me out a lot too over the time. Hey, Frank, just one thing.
Yes.
Either have your video on or have your rocker going, but not both, please, because it's making me seasick at this end. Thank you.
Sorry. And I used to hate to rock, but now it's kind of a habit.
Well, that's fine. You can rock, but just please don't let us look at it because the picture's going up and down and there's nothing we can do about it.
Sorry about that.
Actually, I was worried you were having a seismic event in California. That's what I...
We can all rock in unison.
That would have been side to side. Yeah, Thank you, Dennis.
I swivel side to side most of the time.
That just shows you how good a friend he is of mine, and I of his. That I could tell him that straight out, and he's not going to get
Absolutely.
For those that who have similar issues, the gallery view of the speakers and participants is a useful tool. What I usually have up on the YouTube recording. That way you're not just looking at one person while they're talking. You can see everybody's reactions and whether or not they want to talk and stuff like that. And stuff like that.
Well, I'll have to learn how to use that then.
Yeah, you might have to spend some time fiddling with the Zoom
I
app.
will do that.
Did you have any pictures of your track or anything that you'd like to show us? Or maybe we'll do that later at some point?
I wouldn't know how to bring pictures up. I can always walk out there and just point the camera at it.
If you want to. We certainly have had people do that quite often.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to add too, and why I was talking to John earlier and thanking him for the 356 is through all of this slot car racing that I've been into now for about 6 years, I have about 350 cars or so in my collection now, but I started building as well. So that's why I bought John's 356 kit, which is a fantastic kit, and had a blast building it. But I bought kits from John Warren, from AA Auto Bodies over in England, Pendle Slot Racing, and some I use the PCS 32 chassis, and sometimes I just build my own brass chassis to play with as well. So I really do like building.
And the chassis you built for the 356, did Dennis have any sort of influence? Because it looked like it's got some moving parts there.
No, actually, you built a chassis on, I believe it was the T70. And you show in that one, I think you did the pans connected to the front axles.
Yep.
So I took that idea along with the other ideas of making it to be able to rattle from my 1/24th hard body.
So what you're saying is I have to be really more careful in what I show people.
No, that's why before I started building it, I was questioning you. Where's your pan chassis photos? And then I finally found them back on the T70 episode that you did.
Oh, thank you.
And
Well, and I want to thank you for being the one who watches this stuff too.
Well, yeah. What
You
are
mean
those
apart
words?
from your mother, John?
Oh no, she won't watch it. She won't watch it. No.
Definitely want to see more of those cards, Frank. So when you get some pictures or want to do some screen sharing or point your camera at it, that's something we all like to see.
Okay.
Have you watched some of our previous chat recordings yet?
I watched one a few months ago, but not all of them. When I started seeing he had 66, I went 66 hours of watching. That'd be a lot.
You'd be surprised at how many people go back and just start from day one and just watch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
That's called binge watching, right?
We usually do a show and tell, during anything anybody wants to show and or tell about. We encourage that. So that's the kind of thing that we definitely would like to see is your soldered chassis and your built up kits and your scratch builds and whatever, anything. If it's related to slot cars of any scale in any way, shape, or form, it's show and tellable. So definitely.
Cool. Okay.
You want to show and tell about those things if you do, and we'll have you do it whenever.
Sure. All righty. We'll do that after a while then. Let's let somebody else talk to us.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to, but you kept on talking. Frank. So does anybody have show and tell or questions and answers? DeJuan, it sounded like you had something that you wanted to ask about or talk about.
Well, I was just gonna tell Frank it's a daunting process because this week I actually completed all of the back viewing of the entire.
Wow!
So I finished it as of this week.
It's impressive.
Gotcha.
So
now, DeJuan, how much coffee did that take?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was watching me.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of watching it. That's what, 120 some hours.
But it's a wealth of information. It was really great. I got a lot out of it. I really did. And a lot of tips and tricks throughout the process. So it's worth it. It's actually worth it.
There's definitely a lot. And if you go to, I think it's Slot Racer Online, where Jeremy, one of our regular lurkers, will write basically a synopsis in a humorous way. So if you want to kind of see the episode without seeing the episode and maybe decide if you want to watch the episode, you can go to Slot Racer Online, find the Worldwide Slot Car Chat Zoom thread, and read his little reviews basically of them to kind of get a glimpse of what the episode is before you watch it. And then
he's kind of like the Rona Barrett of the slot car world. Yeah.
And you're telling me that 3 months after watching this?
John, you're giving away your age saying Rona Barrett. You know that, right, John?
Yeah, because I have no idea who it is. So
I was just going to say, most of the people here don't know who
most of the people here do know who that is.
Tell you what, in the comments, if you're watching this, if you know who she is, I'll send you something. How about that?
So, John, I saw you raise your hand when I opened up the floor for show and tell. What do you got?
Yeah, just a couple of a very short one, just to show a little progress on our group build.
Oh, yay!
Yay! So,
like I said before, these are the updates I get too. I don't.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah, we keep you very much in the dark.
Yes.
So this is actually, I broke out one of those Revella Germany kits because we confirmed that it's basically the same as the Matchbox kit. And luckily, all the parts are on the trees, which actually will make things a little easier. There, as you can see where my cursor is the Skeletrix donor car with the rear fenders that we need. This car is actually kind of like, those Revell Tupperware cars. It's not made of styrene, which is not a bad thing. I mean, we just want it to adhere enough to be molded. So there's the initial cut. And then I took the built 935 just as an example. And I think I'm going to have to remove this section as well, because this is the correct rear wing for the car, by the way. So let me just show you side by side. There we go. So I just have to do a little more cutting along here to actually, I'm going to have to, I thought I could perhaps graft this all on, and it won't look good at all. So I think what I'm going to do is actually separate out the fenders separately and actually splice them on the side of the car here and then assemble it. And that's where we're at. I actually did this morning, believe it or not. So it's really kind of cool. I think it's going to come together quite nicely.
I have no doubt in your skill at making this body into exactly what I hoped for. Whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I mean, you usually don't want to see how the sausage is made, but I thought, what the heck?
No, I love seeing it, because I know if I was worried about the final result, I might not want to see the process, but I'm not worried at all about the final result. So this is cool.
There you go. So thank you very much. That's it. It's a shorty.
Awesome. Anybody else got anything to show and tell today? I got a long one, obviously, because of my thing last week. Go ahead, Mike.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I clicked.
You need to unmute yourself, Mike.
Yeah, he's working on it. Give him time.
There he is.
All right, start over.
Okay, I have a new McLaren MR slot car. Nice car. Looks like it's pretty impossible to chip without using a longer lead for the infrared.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. And I also have, well, just the body at this point of a Mirage, an Avant slot Mirage, which has digested a gear, the pinion gear, which appears to be a proprietary size. It's like 5.25 millimeters in diameter, and I can't get a good gear mesh with anything else. So I'm looking for a pinion for it so I can make the car run.
Was it a plastic pinion?
No, it's a brass pinion.
Wow, lost a tooth off a brass pinion?
Well, one of the motor screws fell out. It was loose and I didn't realize it.
Oh, so the pinion...
Lifted the motor up and then chewed it because it's got an Ergol
hold that back up.
Crown gear.
Hold that back up. Hold that back up. In front of the camera.
Oh yeah, in front of the camera.
So what? So what lost a tooth? That thing in your hand?
No,
okay.
No, the pinion did.
Okay, just making sure you're using. I figured you knew what words were words, but Sometimes people don't. Wow.
There's the pinion.
So what have you already tried to put on the motor?
I've tried to put on 5.5 millimeter 9-tooth. This is a 10-tooth pinion. I tried to put on a 5.5 millimeter 9-tooth, and it won't touch at all. It just spins the ergo gear. And I have tried to put a standard a steel 6 millimeter on, and that doesn't work. And so I haven't had a chance to call Alan yet. He that's where I got it from originally. So I'll talk to him and see what gives.
I mean, I'm waiting.
Go from there.
I'm waiting for Dennis to chime in.
Yes.
If you're saying your original is 5.2 something millimeters,
it looks like it. Yeah, it's hard to tell because it's a 10.
You're saying you put a 5.5 on it, and it won't touch. It won't touch the what?
5.5 is too big.
Yes. Okay. Fine. Okay. Yes. You said it wouldn't touch, and I was sort of.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. And you don't want to switch the rear axle and bushings and crown gear and stuff. You want to use the stock one.
Well, I don't see any advantage because the motor doesn't move on the Avant slot chassis.
Oh, okay.
So your gear mesh is determined, and there's not enough room to get it out even further. If you know what I mean.
Isn't it an angle winder?
Yeah, it's an angle winder. Here, I'll show you.
You can adjust the mesh to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, but you can't get in far enough to make the mesh work.
What would you recommend, Chris?
Well, what size are you want to use the stock Spur gear?
Not necessarily.
Well, you can. I mean, you can go up a 0.5 mil. What diameter is the Spur gear that you've got?
Hang on, I'll check. 15.63 millimeters.
Okay, you can go to a 16.5 mil Spur.
Okay.
use
the 5 mil pinion?
Yeah, or I mean the neat thing with angle winders is by moving the spur in and out, you can sort of you can do a bunch of different things with pinion sizes and spur gear sizes. So it does offer you some pretty good options on that way.
That's what I was.
Okay.
Like how does it not fit? I mean, you just don't have as much. You don't have enough side to side play where the spur gear.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's not enough side plate to get adjustment out of it.
All right.
So,
well, sounds like you got.
Just if you've got a 16.5 mil straight cut spur from Mr. Slot Car, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you don't have to use an angle winder spur. Lots of guys use straight cut spur.
Yeah.
Most guys, yeah. There's no. Yeah.
There's no advantage to the angled cut.
Zero.
Okay.
Yeah. Do some swapping. I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a solution for this, but I haven't found it yet. Yeah, 16.5 might work.
You got a fairly decent selection of spare spurs and pinions and stuff to mess with?
I don't have a 16.5, but I have
other stuff.
I have a 16 and a 16 slotted, and that didn't work. So I will see.
That was too big or too small, Michael?
It was too small.
Okay.
Too small with the 5 mil pinion or the 5.5?
With the 5.5.
Okay.
You should be fine with a 16.5 on an angle winder, for God's sake.
Okay.
He
All right.
said,
Michael,
he was right.
Work on. Anybody else got any things they want to show and tell or ask about before I do my long-winded? All right, go ahead, Jeremy.
So the last time I was here, somebody had a Revo slot, and I thought, well, that looked interesting. So I did a quick check, and then there's a guy in Australia who did a review of a Revo slot, the Tom's Castrol Supra. Yeah, I know, that's kind of a weird coincidence. Yeah, right? So I watched this video, and I was like, oh my God, my favorite car of all time from Gran Turismo 2. So I had to go get it. And I've been out of the hobby for 3 years. So I started looking through and I started looking at some of the prices on eBay. And I was like, I guess I'm not going to be getting that car. So then I just wound up getting the GT2 Porsche. But I just like computer stuff. So this one is the Apple themed one. I just always like that. I mean, it kind of reminded me of that. Paul Newman had one similar to like a 935, I think, or something that was very similar to that. So it was just kind of interesting to me. And then quickly, the second thing I got was I saw the Paint It kits from
Pioneer.
Yeah, I heard those were like Car of the Year a few years ago or something, and I missed out on it. So I just wanted to get, my club's been totally out of it. They haven't picked up on these. So I just wanted to see how they go and see if it's something that we could do for a club racing.
Oh yeah, the Pioneer Legends are super popular for club classes, and that kind of reminds me to touch on the Sunoco livery that Big Den was showing us a few weeks ago, and of course me, Mr. Blue and Yellow Slot Car, wanted to buy them immediately. They were only available on armchairracer.com.au, and I'm like, okay, well they're not anywhere else, so I'll go ahead and just order it from them. And I go back and they're gone. So I'm wondering either they were like proposed liveries that shouldn't have been showing on that webpage and aren't in production yet, or those were somebody's custom painted white kits that they sold through armchairracer.com and they've been bought and so they're not on the site anymore. Because I've never seen those cars anywhere else ever. Travis, do you know what's going? Have you seen the Pioneer Legends series cars, and have you seen the Sunoco liveries that I'm referring to?
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about, mate. I'll find out today for you, and I'll email you because I did see that. But I will ask that question today because they are gorgeous. But watch this space. I'll let you know, mate. If there is any, I'll hit you up straight away.
All right. Well, you know where to find me. If you
I know where to find you.
Any leads on those cars, please come to me.
Hey, I'm writing it down as we speak. Don't worry.
All right, perfect.
I'm just having a look on.
And don't forget your finder's fee.
I'm just having a look on Armchair's site, and there's not listed there so far. They were there a while ago, as we said.
I was just looking on it like yesterday, so I know they're not there. So I'm just curious as to why they were there at all, because I also went to Pioneer's website, and they're not listed there either. You can get the white kits and the other liveries, but no Sunoco. So I'm thinking that they were probably custom painted white kits that got sold. But I look forward to your answer, Travis. Or
give me an hour. Give me an hour.
Give me an hour. Okay.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to show and tell? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and start my presentation.
You there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Greg? Yeah, just on the coming soon section on Armchair Racer, they have the Pioneer Legend P130 Dodge Coupe, Legends Sunoco number 15.
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong spot.
It's due early July 2021, so it should be in the store soon. I don't know. You might have to send a message or put one down as a on the list to get.
Yeah, and okay, so now I recall that that's where they were, and it wasn't in the regular Pioneer section. So, but I still have not seen that anywhere on any other site. So I'm still wondering if it's down under exclusive or something.
They're just messing with your head. They're messing with your head, man.
Yeah, they're just teasing me. Somebody else chimed in. What's that?
Do you want one put on hold, mate? I can probably email through and talk to them and get one on hold for you if you want one.
One of each.
One of each. Done.
There's two. There's the yellow and blue, and there's the blue and yellow. So.
All right. I'll see if I get one. I'll get them on hold for you, mate.
Perfect. All right. So, one more last call for show and tell before I start my show and tell. All right, here we go. And you'll probably end up seeing some pictures that have nothing to do with this, but I'll start with the first picture I took while I was there. This is the yellow track. All the tracks have a color. You see the blue one in the background there. They also have other names. I don't know what the other names are because they pretty much just constantly refer to the tracks as a yellow track. So just kind of a backup to why I'm talking about this. I'm going to say a few months ago, I was contacted by a guy asking about Carrera digital and oxygen and stuff like that. And we started talking back and forth, and his name is Michael Block, co-founder of Slot Track and host of this event called the Quarrel, which is an HO slot car event. And he's putting together a digital track and wants to do a big routed digital oxygen-based track, made by Brad Bowman, which all these tracks are also made by. Apparently somebody's sketching onto the screen, apparently accidentally. Anyways, so, we talked back and forth about the digital stuff quite a bit, and he invited me to come to this event. So I said, okay, you only live once. I'll come and race cars that I've never run, and in a place I've never been, on tracks I've never raced on, with people I've never raced with. Should be fun. Spoiler alert, it was fun. So the picture you're looking at is the yellow track, also known as Algarve. I don't recall. I think that's the name of the track that it was based on. There are some tweaks to the layout to make it a better slot car track, and better flow, and a good mix between technical and fast. This is obviously one part of the track. That's the other part of the track. As you can see, we'll see some more pictures of this pit building later on, because it's Lego, and I definitely wanted to do lots of great pictures of the massive Lego pit building. This pit building was a love-hate thing for a lot of people. I loved it because I also like Lego. I mean, I grew up with Lego, but it was hated by many because right at the end of the main straight is a double hairpin wiggle that you can see there. And the guys over on this corner could not see that wiggle because of the pit building, completely blocked their view of that. In fact, the only people who could really see that wiggle were the first couple lanes. This is a 6-lane track, if you couldn't tell. It's kind of a top-down view showing my gut. And here's an overall view. As I mentioned before, this is a Brad Bowman track, Brad's Tracks. Fantastic track, very smooth, great power, just everything is wonderful about Brad's Tracks. Better view of the blue track. Pretty much all the tracks are a fairly even mix of fast and technical. As you can see, this one here kind of ends in a, 2 short straights and then the main straight. And then you've got a whole bunch of technical. The fun thing about these cars is we're basically running Fray cars, as in the Fray down in California, a yearly event. And they're hooked up. They are gravity cars, essentially. They're not gravity race HO cars like brass chassis. They are Thunderjet T-Jet chassis, but virtually no magnetic downforce. So all the traction is accomplished by gravity. There's like a few grams, as I mentioned while I was interviewing people last week while I was there. The cars are only about 20 grams. And the maximum downforce allowed is 6 grams. So I mean, yeah, relative to the car weight, there's downforce, but you can't feel it. Like when you're putting the car down and picking it up, you can't really feel it. So it's not like a Mega G or a magnetic 1/32 car or whatever. It doesn't feel like it has magnetic traction. It does, obviously, just doesn't feel like it. And they're silicone tires, so clean track was of utmost importance. Clean tires also of utmost importance. You could clean your tires in the middle of a heat. If you wanted to pull your cars off the track and clean the tires, you could do that if you want to. But of course, cleaning the tires before each and every heat was what everybody did. And there's basically a roll of blue painter's tape folded back on itself at every driver station on every track for people to quickly roll their tires on and put it back on the track. And I say that because this turn that you can kind of see down there, let me see if I got a better view of it. No. So this turn down here is actually a straight, because if you come out of this tight turn here, you can pin it right there and go zoop, and then go around this little hairpin, and then you pin it right here again, zoop, and then the tiniest little straights and wide enough curves are essentially straights for these cars, even though they're not magnet traction cars. You do need brakes. As I showed last week, I was using my slotted SCP controller. In this particular case, I was using an SCP-3 with the wireless connected to a high amp cartridge because I wanted to not have amps be a problem. But brakes were a thing that you wanted to use. You did not want the cars to coast forever because they do, in fact, coast quite well. They're very well-tuned cars. So even though they're, basically toy cars from the 70s or 60s, the ones that these guys are racing are, higher quality. A lot of them are whiz jets. Most of them are whiz jet chassis, which are basically the same chassis except better in every way. More attuned to this level of racing. As I said last week, to my untrained eye, I could put them side to side and not tell the difference other than, copper tracks and copper pickups and stuff like that. But otherwise, they look the same. You get out a micrometer and you can tell the difference. Obviously, these guys can just look at it and tell, what's a whiz jet or a T-jet or a Johnny Lightning or whatever it is. But these cars are hooked up. Clean track, silicone tires. You could pin it where you would not expect to be able to pin a car to full throttle. So that was my biggest hurdle to overcome while I'm trying to race these cars, is trusting the car in places where I would not normally trust a 1/32 scale car to go at the speeds that they're capable of going. And then when I finally would get out of that, break free of that limitation of mine, I would come off in the top. Too much. It's, I either don't trust it enough or I trust it too much. So I tended to err towards not trusting it enough in order to stay on the track. Because like with any racing, coming off is much worse than just staying on and going slow. And in this particular, at this event, because of everything that's been happening over the last year, he didn't want to do a team event, which is more common for these events and the fray and stuff like that. So it was basically all individual. So the format was essentially a rally format. So the times that you get to get your laps in was cumulative. And at the very end of all the racing, your cumulative lap time of getting those laps in was what your standings were determined by. And I was second to last of the people who finished all their laps. Because if you are going so slow that you don't finish your laps within 30 seconds of the lead finishing their laps. I think when we're doing it, it was 12 laps per heat. So, everybody going around 12 times and the leader crosses, 30 seconds starts right then and there. And if you don't finish all your laps within that 30-second time, you don't finish, you don't get all your laps. So I was the second to the last of the people who actually finished all the laps of every heat of every race. So I call that a win in my book, not last, but also not last of the not lasts. So I was quite happy with that performance. I'm just kind of rambling, so I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of questions later.
Well, first things first, they look like little scaled down commercial tracks from the 60s.
They pretty much exactly are. Yep. Yeah. At this event, there weren't any high bank tracks, but I talked to some of the guys, and I showed last week, one of the guys showed off a plastic track that had like a wall bank. That's for magnet traction, but some of these tracks are made with banks, like a king track, like a 1/24 scale king track. In fact, people were talking about their HO versions of exactly those tracks. And so they do exist. They just didn't have any here. This is purple, also called the Mini Cat Spa Ring or Mini KSR. The design is based on the Cat Spa Ring, which is another routed HO track for Greg Katz I mentioned last week. If you Google search for Katz, K-A-T-Z, Spa Ring, you'll see lots and lots of beautiful pictures of a beautifully landscaped routed HO track and find lots of videos of the guys racing around on it. This is basically a flattened version of that track, but as you can see, there's still plenty of elevation changes. Some of the curves are slightly banked, like this one in the back has a slight bank to it. So a well-tuned car can actually hit it full power on the final turn and go through it at full power because there's just enough bank that if your car is tuned well enough, you don't have to let up before you go through that turn. I had to let up going through that turn.
Greg, even with the HO cars, did you notice the elevation changes in the?
Oh yeah, yeah. If like in this turn right here on the far right side, that's a rise and a dip. So if you're not letting off at the right point, you just go straight into the wall because it's jumping out of the slot.
You should take Greg's Google on the cat spa ring when you get a chance, John. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the elevation change on the cat spa ring is like 38 inches from low to high. It's ridiculous. It's like eye height at the
That's on an HO track?
Yeah. It's sort of regarded, depending on who you talk to, it's always reported as like one of the best slot car tracks. The whole thing.
The scenery is unbelievable on that track.
Yeah, it's
think of a slot mods track, but in HO scale. That's basically what the cat spa ring is. Yeah, and it's huge. It's even for an HO. I mean, you can see this is a smaller, flattened version of the cat spa ring. So think of bigger, but this is actually the only 4-lane track in his house, because the cat spa ring is a 4-lane track, I believe, and you know, he wanted to kind of keep it as close to the experience of the cat spa ring as possible without being a copy of the cat spa ring.
Dennis is looking for it right now.
I'm sure everybody's looking for it. And the people who are watching the recording, go ahead and pause. I give you permission to pause this, search that, watch that, then come back here, because you don't forget to come back. That's the important part. Anyway, so the better pictures, and I think this is actually a video of me. I'm not sure how well it's going to play, but I'm just kind of panning across the whole thing from right to left. I'm going to see if I can get rid of that scribble. No. But I took other shots, of course. This is the red track. This is in the back room. Here's another example of where you can pin it without thinking that you can pin it. And it took me a while. You know, I had Mike there basically kind of coaching me on a lot of the tracks, because he wanted me to do well. You know, I didn't come expecting to do anything other than, you know, not finish dead last, but he wanted me to be somewhere higher than that. So he came around when I was practicing, and when I was taking breaks, he would come over and say, "Hey, you need to practice." I'm like, I practiced out. But anyways, while I'm practicing on this track, he came by to coach me. And this kind of loop section here, you can pin it right where that yellow line is covering up the start of the straight. And then you just let up just for a blip, and then you can pin it again, like right here, and then go all around that turn before you let up again, and then coast a little bit, and then pin it again right there before you go through this technical section, and then of course the straightaway. You know, so like I said, most of my practice was trying to understand the physics of these cars and what I could and couldn't do, and of course remembering to tape, you know, to clean the tires with tape, because even the slightest bit of schmutz that you can't even see affects the performance of the car. So yeah, that's basically that. Took some pictures of these nifty controller holders. They actually are just hooked over the wall. Might have to do something like that. A picture I took earlier of the cars that I was practicing with. These are all Frey rules cars. And we talked about it last week. They have these weights on the front axles. The flat part is hanging, you know, downwards. As you can see, the flat part is there at the bottom, and then it's just kind of round at the top because the body interferes. In fact, at one point during one of the races, I didn't even notice that there was a problem. I just thought I was a bad driver, which of course is true, but I didn't notice the problem that the car, after a crash, one of these weights had flipped around. And so the wide flat part was up at the top, trapped between the axle and the body. And of course, that's not good for car performance. I couldn't see it, I couldn't feel it, I couldn't hear it, but one of the guys is watching my car go around. He's like, "Oh, there's something wrong. Oh, there's something wrong." And then I stopped, and he looked at it and picked it up and he said, "Oh yeah, one of the weights is flipped around." I'm like, okay, thanks. You know, I had to take the body off to fix it. You know, I just let them do their wrenching, because I'm not even gonna look too hard at these cars and for fear of messing up their tuning.
No, sorry to interrupt, Greg, but the red car that you're pointing to now, that looks like it's cast resin, and the other one looks like it's Lexan.
And that's why I made that mistake last week. I thought that they were all Lexan. The window bubbles are Lexan, are vacuum formed, Lexan. But these cars are all cast resin cars. Some of them are really thin. But yeah, that is cast resin.
And are these cars like my ones were, where you just spread the body shell out to take it off, and it clips back over the outsides?
You've got 2 screws.
As you can see, there's screws. The back one here is usually left a little loose, so you only have to really take out the front one, and then the chassis comes out of the body quite easily. They usually do body float. When I was putting a body on, because he gave me chassis to test with, because why put a body on unless you're happy with the chassis? And when I was kind of at the point where I needed to start racing it with a body on it, because obviously they perform differently, I'm like, okay, thinking I'm going to completely do it wrong, which I probably would have. I said, hey, can I see a car that has the body on right for me to copy? And yeah, like a quarter turn off of tight, and there's float, and any more than that, it's bad. So like even more, the precision on these things is absolutely insane. I'm sure some of you guys already know that, but we talk about precision for the 132nd and the 124th cars, all the time. It's important, obviously, but it's like a whole other level with these things. It's redonkulous. We're talking about a mil of anything one way or the other completely ruins or makes it into a perfect runner.
Now, Greg, with what we've learned from Chris with, the bits of urethane that he puts on his mounting areas, would that be something that you may have suggested to these folks that would help in handling in any way?
Dude, I'm not going to insult them by opening my mouth about tuning things. However, maybe, I didn't, of course, but maybe, I don't know. But there's not a whole, we're talking about a fraction of a millimeter of float. There's not enough room to put one of those things on, and they want the bodies to be absolutely as low as possible. Some of the bodies are skimming the rails as they drive around. I wasn't going to go there, that's for sure. Maybe somebody else can. Maybe somebody watching this video who runs freight cars can say, oh yeah, let's try that and see what it works. But the rules are so, it's a book of rules, for crying out loud. And one of the times I came back, it was like after the last race, and they were talking about one of the guys had done something that was to the letter of the rule, but not the spirit of the rule, which of course we run into all the time in all the scales. And they were debating on whether or not what he did should be allowed, which pretty much is no. But then how do you write the rule so that it's obvious that is not allowed, rather than the loophole that they found? I don't remember the specifics of what it was, but it was just such a minute thing. And this guy, tried it and it seemed to work. He didn't win the race, so it wasn't like him getting disqualified for doing this thing, but they couldn't have anyways because it wasn't expressly prohibited by the rules. So, they're probably going to change the rules because of that, but that's how it works. Like, I'm sure every year somebody does something new that a rule needs to be written for, and that's the kind of thing that there's probably a rule against.
When you look
but you're right. There's always a Roger Penske, right?
Yeah. Well, and you have to follow the rule. I mean, as Greg said, the rule book's the rule book. I mean, these things are, if you looked at like an open T-Jet type car, all on with you got the middle chassis there, the rails before and after the gear plate holder are all cut off. All of those gears are all drilled out with a series of holes. All of the edges of the gears are beveled at an angle so they ride above the gear plate. So there's, these guys obviously have to run plastic guide pins, which they are what they are, and they're in the rules. But there's a billion things that can be changed and improved on these things, but you got to go by what the rules say. So.
And they obviously have a very strict set of rules, and these guys are eking absolutely everything they possibly can, out of these cars within that rule set.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's entirely possible, just like Chris is saying, is elsewhere in this world of high performance HO cars, people are doing that. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is fun, and it's what's a good? It's an archaic kind of car. I mean, they're 60s cars.
Yeah, and of course there was a whole, you know, there wasn't a hullabaloo while I was there, but they kind of told me about the hullabaloo of Whizjet chassis, in that essentially, because Thunderjets are no longer in production,
right,
the governing body made an agreement to allow a guy to injection mold, you know, repops basically of the Thunderjet chassis so that they could continue having available chassis. And after he got that go ahead, he made some changes to make it perform better, and they were not happy about that.
Yeah.
So of course some places allow that and some places don't, because of how, you know, whatever their rules are and what, you know, whatever their decisions were. You know, these were Whizjets, so these were basically the better, you know, more exacting, higher performing version of Thunderjets.
Greg, did you find out whether the Whizjet was manufactured by Wizard HO?
I did not ask that specific question, so I cannot give you an answer on that.
Wizard HO is a manufacturer, and I just wonder if yeah, it's possible.
I mean, it makes,
with the naming nomenclature, yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Yep. So more pictures of the red track, or I was doing a video there. Here's me driving. This is going to be me driving one of my test cars around very, very slowly. This is not racing speed. And I'm videoing at the same time, obviously. Yeah. Oh, here's one of the beers that was there. It tasted terrible. Nobody wanted to drink it. And here's me doing a lap on purple. Let's see if I can do it without crashing. Yeah, that turn from this driver's station is very difficult. And then this, you just kind of got to baby it through. It's too technical to drive for me.
It's funny. If you didn't put that car on the track and had no controllers or anything, just a picture of the track, you can always tell it's an HO track. Like there's a specific HO design of tracks, which basically follows the premise that you really should try and get as much track into any given 8x4 foot board you can do it on.
Yes, and even with that, these were fairly conservative as far as how much track is on the boards.
Some of them were just like you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, and there's no space between. There's no table to see. It's all track.
Yeah.
I think this is a practice session, so we'll see some guys actually driving the cars properly.
I'm gonna take a break. Yeah, I'm leaving.
These aren't the best of the best. I'll get to one where it's the best of the best. Showing off the slotted controller. Yes, it works. Car I brought. So this is the digital track.
We have a
So pretty much as you expect, a digital race with a bunch of analog guys. It was carnage and chaos and anarchy, but they picked it up after a little while. Some of them didn't mind shunting cars in front of them off the track at every opportunity. Some of them were more courteous. I tend to be a courteous digital racer, so I did not win because I was not pushing other people off the track from in front of me. But yeah, there's that. Not going to spend too much time on that. Here's a picture I took to prove that I did not come in last. This was qualifying for the individuals. This was just basically, hot laps on the yellow track, I believe. So not the slowest. I call that a win. This is the slip-on version of the car. So the cars are essentially the same, except for the Fray cars were, the silicone tires were silicone-coated sponge tires mounted to the wheels. hubs. And then they had those counterbalanced weights that hung down and close to the track. This was what they were calling an E-fray car or a slip-on car, because the rear tires are solid silicone slipped onto the hub, and with concentric weights rather than counterweighted axle weights in the front. So you can see this weight doesn't have the flat spot there. And I might have an underside picture as well. There's a top down. There we go. So you can see smaller concentric weights, and the hubs are different because they're not mounted. They're just slipped right on. So people were changing tires and trying different tires and stuff like that. You know, guys came with massive bags full of thousands of tires, and they were all pre-tuned tires, right? They weren't just like popped out of a mold. You know, after they came out of the mold, they went onto a machine which surfaced them and rounded the edges and all that kind of stuff, and then they were sold. And then these guys would go through dozens of them to find the ones that worked the best. And then they would change them every few, you know, heats or races or whatever. They're allowed to have multiple spare cars so that they could basically have, you know, 3 cars tuned as well as they possibly could, and swap to a different car if they felt like it at any time. Side view, just to kind of show the precision. I mean, the pickups barely move at all. I mean, you can kind of see the gap between where the pickup, this is the pickup not on the track, obviously. There's like a millimeter of motion, you know, enough for it to touch and have pressure on the rails.
Well, Greg, it looks like the black paint has been rubbed off by the track.
Oh, these cars have had some track time, that's for sure.
That's correct. They run them touching the track.
Oh yeah. The yellow paint got rubbed off, and that's the underline or whatever, vice versa. Yeah. Just some close-up pictures of things. Close-up picture of the rail. This is one of the joints. It looks like it's offset, but it's absolutely not offset at all. I couldn't feel anything across that other than right in the middle where there's, you know, an actual gap.
And is it made of MDF, Greg?
These are Sintra, so expanded polyurethane foam pieces. That's what Blanchard does. I think most of the routed HO track companies use Sintra or similar.
Is it like a honeycomb finish, Greg?
What was that, Travis?
Are they like a honeycomb finish? I think when they do the track, it's got like a honeycomb center. Is that what this one was made out of?
I think it's solid, but it's expanded polyurethane. So there's bubbles in it, but they're teeny weeny. You can't really.
Because I think the Viper tracks are like a honeycomb cross-hatch style. It's a weird-looking bit of track. I was wondering if this is very similar or not.
I've not seen the inside of it, so I'll have to let somebody else answer that if they know the answer to that. You might be able to see the flat steel that is the rail, and then the lock wire, which is colored, so every lane has its own color of lock wire, and then of course these are the bridges that you know bring power from this rail to that rail. Each track has a slightly different hookup, so I decided to take pictures of all the hookups. They're all, you know, black, red, white, black hookups. Some of them have fuses, some of them have lights, and some of them don't. I thought this one was pretty clever because, you know, they're all alligator clips pretty much, so you just kind of grab that little pole there. So I like this one because it's very difficult to accidentally short between two, which is not too hard on some other 3-pole systems. Guys, laps and stuff. These are the results. The winners, the top 6 of the individuals, which was basically, you know, best laps and you know, straight up, you know, more laps and whatnot. More distance, not time.
Hold on.
He's a friend of mine, eh?
15th anniversary. They've been doing this for 15 years.
15 years, yeah. 15 years for the Quarrel. The Fray, I believe, has been going longer.
Oh God, forever.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, don't ask me history stuff for sure.
Did they run anything, or did you get a chance to see anything other than pancake cars, Greg?
I mean, other people had brought other cars. You know, most of these guys race in various things all over the country.
Yeah.
But no, we pretty much just raced the Fray and E-Fray. So that's
that's fine. That's fine.
Was that Michael in the middle of the picture that you showed us?
Michael is none of these guys. So that's Ron, Jeff, RC, Rick, Jocham, Charlie, and Chris.
I'm looking out for a picture of Michael. Michael came over to the UK.
Are you talking about Block?
Yeah, Michael Block. He came over to the UK in 2005. I met him at the HO 24-hour race, which is also a Brad's track. That would be about when he started all this 15 years ago.
All right, don't worry, Wayne. I got pictures of Mike. Don't worry. Let's keep moving on. So I'm not sure what race this is or if it's practice. I think this is practice. Otherwise, he'd be putting that car on a lot faster. And
Rick Jocham actually races or lives down here somewhere.
Yeah,
he raced 124th scale retro with us for a short while.
I mean, a lot of these guys came from 124th scale in their youth. You know, I heard lots of similar stories in that regard. Some of them still do, obviously. You know, at this level, you know, these guys are basically trying to race high performance wherever they can get high performance racing done. So, you know, they'll be racing all kinds of things. Those are a little bit better, but I have a heat of the purple. Yeah, here we go. So this is the A main of the rally. This is the final heat of everything for everything. So we got Jeff and Ron and Charlie, and I think Chris actually made it. No, that's Chris in the back with this here. This is Mike here, right in the foreground. Wayne, if you recognize the side of his head. But these are the top of the top here, and this is how fast you race that track. If you can, hopefully it's not just frame by frame for you guys, but you know, watch it on the recording later. It should be good frame rate. RC is the last guy there in the heat. Just, you know,
it's like watching a swarm of bees.
And this isn't even Mega G. You know, this isn't even magnet cars. You know, the magnet cars you can't even see. It's like the 124th stuff, you know, the world record 124th stuff. You're not watching the car, you're just pulling the trigger. These cars you gotta drive.
This is the slowest of the slow in HO stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all the pancake armatures that are flat. It's just the slowest of the slow.
Pretty much the only HO car that I'd be capable of driving.
And you know, arguably by far, if you sat guys down and said to them honestly, most guys have more fun with freight cars and T-Jet cars than they do with things that go around like 5 times faster. You know.
And I had a lot of fun, and I made some horse. I did some horse trading with Charlie, and brought home a couple of cars. I'll be showing some pictures of in a little bit. I came with a few cars, and I left with different cars. So good for me for bringing some cars. So now I have a couple of high performance, you know.
Okay, let me guess, Greg. Are they yellow and blue?
One of them is.
He was saying slowest of the slow, but it's still too fast for my old eyes.
You know, I was able to do it. You know, I like the big cars for that reason. And that's why a lot of these guys and me and definitely me as one of those guys chose a nice brightly colored body so that I would just watch the streak, you know. But like I'm sure you're familiar, cars always look faster when you're not the one pulling the trigger, right? When you're the one pulling the trigger, even though you might be going just as fast or faster than those other guys, it doesn't seem as fast, right? So when you see them driving those cars fast, yeah, they might be faster. Those guys were absolutely faster than me, but it always looks faster when it's somebody else, you know, driving the car.
Hey, we got a hockey fan who podiumed. This is awesome.
Yep, that is Jeff. He got 3rd place, and that's, of course, Michael right there, shaking his hand. And that's Ron. He got 2nd place. And I didn't actually get a picture. In fact, the reason there's so many pictures of these guys is because the 3 of them basically each won 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place of all 3 of the different things that there were awards for, right? So Jeff got 3 plaques of 3rd place for the different things. Ron got 3 plaques of 2nd place for the different things, and Charlie got 3 plaques of 1st place for the different things. I don't have pictures of Charlie because he wanted me to use his phone to take pictures of him for him. So I don't have pictures on my phone of Charlie. If you want to see more pictures and videos of and discussion on the activity, I'm sure it can be found at the Quarrel Facebook group. So if you're looking for that, and of course, Michael Block has a YouTube channel. You know, last week we talked about that. You can find it and watch the things happening live and see me doing poorly. Then of course we went out for dinner and had a good time, lots of margaritas. Oh, and so this is funny. So apparently there's a running joke where somebody is picked on to be the birthday boy of the group. It's almost never their birthday, but somebody in the group says, "Hey, let's tell them it's this so-and-so's birthday." And so tonight was Chris's turn to be the birthday boy. And he enjoyed it. And that was a really good fried ice cream as well. So there's one of the bodies that I got. I put it in the HO Lego pit building on yellow. So here's a bunch of pictures of the pit building from down low and from up high.
That's awesome, Lego.
It is impressive. And like I said earlier, it's a love-hate. Lots of people hated it. I loved it. You know, I just, you know, in that hairpin at the end of the straight, you pretty much just got to drive on faith. I didn't mind that because I'm used to people's tracks with, you know, terrible designs and overpasses that block your view. So I'm used to driving on faith. So that didn't bother me, but some of the other guys not so happy. Some of them put a big sign on here that said "F this building" right there because this is what's blocking that turn. Try to get a clear shot through the glass of the upper level, all the way down, totally open. There's some other good ones in here, down low on the track.
I'm surprised they haven't put any HO figures in it because it would look so cool.
Yeah, I was surprised there weren't some more in there. Looking through the upper level. Oh, never mind. Here we go. So these are the cars that these are my T-Jets, my T-Jet collection. This guy over here is my Johnny Lightning T-Jet, which is absolute garbage. This one here is what he's called a skinny jet or a skinny T-Jet. You know, narrow rear tires and hubs and everything, so it actually fits under this body. And I'll tell a funny story about that Camaro body if you help me remember. And then this is the Frey Whizjet car with the blue and yellow body on it. So I think, yeah, here's a top view of the three. I put my Camaro body back on my Johnny Lightning chassis because one of the guys at the morning that I was flying away, you know, back at Mike's before he took me to the airport, one of the Rick Jockum was cleaning up his stuff. He wasn't going to leave until Monday, so he was still cleaning up his stuff, and he was just kind of making a pile of garbage. And I'm looking at that pile, and I'm like, can I go ahead and take that stuff that you're going to throw away in the garbage anyways? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. No. So I basically took a bag full of slip-on silicone tires, springs, pickups, some screws, just a variety of things that were deemed to be unacceptable quality in his opinion, or in his, you know, very highly skilled and informed judgment. I'll say not opinion, but judgment. To me, they're gold. So, you know, I took them, and fortunately, the slip-on tires slipped right onto my Johnny Lightning hubs. So my Johnny Lightning car got new tires, and it hooks up. This is my Skeletrix Micro Transformers themed track that I have at home to play around on. And this video is me showing, primarily for the audio, the difference in quality of these three cars. So it doesn't take a whole lot to hear the quality difference. So hopefully you can hear this. Let me turn the volume up a little bit. So this is my Johnny Lightning piece of junk. And this is the skinny jet. Oops. Still the skinny jet. And then this is the Frey. So not only can you hear the difference in speed, but smoothness, obviously, loudness, ricketiness, versus quietness and smoothness, but also in the braking, right? That was releasing the controller. I didn't have brakes on this track. It's just, Skeletrix 2-wire track, no brakes. But the Johnny Lightning just basically stopped, as soon as I let go of the controller, it just stopped because it's garbage. And the Skinny Jet coasted a little bit, but this thing, was like coasting for 5 seconds, it seemed like, after you let go of the power. So you want brakes on those cars. And they're...
Well, what wasn't the difference in the cars have to do with the magnets and the armature that's in those?
Of course, yeah. I mean, all that stuff plays a role. And the continuation of my story is that, like I mentioned, the garbage parts that he gave me, I'm like, okay, what's it going to hurt for me to tear down my Johnny Lightning chassis and, see what happens, So I took that thing down, and of course it was just black with gunk in all the wrong places. So I spent a few minutes with Q-tips and Inox and whatnot, just sopping up the gunk and getting it to be, as clean as I could make it. Obviously, it was all scratched up in all the wrong places and, all that kind of stuff with, poor quality everything. But yeah, I took the top plate off, and I took the gear off, and I took the motor pancake part off, and the magnets came with it, and cleaned off the contacts and cleaned off the comms, and some of the garbage that he gave me were brushes, right? So I'm like, ooh, I'll go ahead and replace these crapped up brushes with these nice, copper brushes, and see if I can see what happens, right? Just throw garbage, what is considered garbage for a freight car, into the Johnny Lightning car and see what happens. And wouldn't you know it, it runs better. Not like the Skinny Jet or the freight car, obviously, but better than the Johnny Lightning did at first. So I'm happy to have taken home garbage from Rick Jockum's pit box as he was preparing to leave. Let's see, do I have anything else? No, I think that's it. So I'm going to stop the share. And I'm sure, let me talk about the Camaro body. so the Johnny Lightning car is a late 60s Camaro, like the Bumblebee from the Transformers, movie, Camaro, red and yellow and black stripes, which is why I bought the car in the first place. And it's technically legal, right? Right. It falls within the rules that I would be allowed to use that body on one of the cars. However, it offended the sensibilities of the people who built the chassis that I was borrowing to even consider putting that body on those cars, because to them it would completely ruin the performance of the chassis. And I can't obviously disagree with them. It wasn't you tune a body to the chassis. You tune your chassis, you decide what chassis you're gonna, and then you work the body onto that chassis and make it tune together as a pair. And the Camaro was not suitable for racing. I didn't care. I just didn't want to finish last. The chassis alone would have, even with that body on it, would still not have been the limiting factor here, right? I was the limiting factor, not anything else. But no, I was not allowed to race with my Camaro body. So after I did the horse trading for the freight car and the Skinny Jet, I'm like, well, now it's my chassis. So of course I tried to put it on there, and it wouldn't fit the freight car because of things, but it fit nicely on the Skinny Jet. So that was nice to be able to put the Camaro onto a chassis that actually runs quite nicely. But then after I got home and did the fiddling around with all the garbage parts and got the Johnny Lightning, I'm like, okay, well, it's not like I'm going to the Fray or the Quarrel next week, so I'll just go ahead and put the Camaro back on its original chassis, because at least now it can go around my track without spinning the wheels the whole time, because silicone tires on a track are much better than the hard, practically solid, crusty rubber that was on the car. So,
well, I think Frank has moved venues to show us some of his collection, Greg.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. You want to show off?
Yes,
Frank? Or does before we move to Frank, sorry, Frank, does anybody have any questions that I probably can't answer about the Fray or HO cars or my experience. I can answer questions about my experience. So anybody have any questions about that weren't already asked? Now is your chance.
Did it inspire any sort of 1/32 scale tuning thoughts?
No.
Aspects?
No.
Okay, there you go.
It inspired me to throw some junk parts into my Johnny Lightning car, which was enjoyable for the half an hour that I was up in with no fans blowing on me. It's hot right now. I don't have AC, so I have a fan blowing on me right now. But while I was doing that, I was just sweating like crazy. So I didn't do that for very long. I thought you were going to ask, does going to that event inspire me to continue HO racing? Because they were asking me that.
Well, that was my next question, but you wouldn't let me answer.
Because they were literally asking me that. I felt like they were asking me that once every hour. Like everybody there took their chance to ask me that every hour. So 22 times an hour, I felt like I was being asked that same question. Are you having fun? Yes, I'm having fun. Stop asking me if I'm having fun, because then I'll stop it. Or, are you going to come back next year? Or, are you going to start HO racing now? Or have you ever driven these cars? And like, yes, I'm
Were you having a good time, Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I was having a good time. I feel like I'm back there right now.
Well, I just want to say thank you. It's good. It's the first person that's brought much HO to the chat, and it was a great race report. Thanks very much.
And I kind of mentioned to them a lot of the times, these guys on the Zoom chat, like to hear about this stuff, and any of you would be absolutely welcome to come on and just burst bubbles and blow minds and impress people with your technical prowess and HO cars of all kinds and stuff like that. Hopefully somebody says hey, what Greg was on this Zoom thing, let's go see what it's about. Nobody said, oh yeah, I'm totally going to come, so I wouldn't count on it. But as far as the answer to that repetitive question, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they were fantastic cars. Now I have a couple. Maybe at some point I'll take a look, because there's a pretty strong HO scene here in the Seattle metro area. Maybe I'll see what they're up to. Maybe I'll go and say hi and see what they're racing. But in all likelihood, probably not, because I would have to dive into that, right? I can't just go with a Frey car and a skinny jet and expect to be racing with these guys. They probably don't even race by those rules. Maybe they race Ultra Gs or Mega Gs or whatever it is. I would have to basically restart the slot car hobby in HO scale. Maybe I know a little bit to hit the ground running, but so probably not. If somebody around here says, hey, Greg, come on over, I got loaner cars that you can race, that are to spec with what we're racing, I'll probably say yeah. But first somebody's got to come to me and say, hey, Greg, you want to come race with spec cars? And I have loaner cars for you and loaner controllers, because if they're running Mega Gs, I need coast, and slotted controllers don't have coast. But we'll see. It was a long week of activity for me. I didn't go to my normal analog racing the night before I left. I did not go to the normal analog racing the night after I came back, because I was slotted out after that. And I barely wanted to do any of the racing on Saturday, because Friday was the individual stuff. That was enough for me. I was done at that point. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll just, Mike was getting on my case about practicing, because we raced every track with 2 tracks we did Frey, 2 tracks we did the E-Frey slip-on cars. I was done. I did not want to do that, but I did anyways, which kind of triggers another story I mentioned before we started the recording, that some of the guys left early. It was like 22 guys, I think, had basically RSVP'd, so they were planning to come. A couple of guys didn't come because of COVID, exposures or sicknesses or whatever. So kudos to them for not coming when they were sick. There was some hullabaloo during one of the races when a couple of guys were not happy with how things were happening, and they left early. So by the end of Saturday, it was, I think, only 17 guys. And I kind of made a joke at that Mexican dinner after the last race. I'm like, I flew in to a strange place to race strange cars on strange tracks with strange people. And I ended up having to, I switched to a strange controller because sometimes when I hooked up, when the track was live, I would pop the fuses on the track with my wireless receiver because apparently it decided to pull, enough amps to pop the fuse, when I hook up. Not a problem during races because the track power is off, so it never happened during a race. But I didn't want to cause problems with my controller, so I borrowed one of their controllers. So I didn't even have the comfort of my well-known controller either. So absolutely everything was out of my comfort zone, and I still finished the dang race. So to those guys who quit early, there are words for them, which I will not speak on this recording.
Thank you for protecting my virgin ears.
There you go. No problem, Frank. Anytime.
Well, like 10 years ago, I joined our local HO club. I raced with them for about 6 months, and I noticed when I went back to 1/32 scale, my reflexes were on fire because like the speed at what I was doing with them, it made me. But then I kind of lost interest because the scale speeds. I mean, you're racing at 700 miles an hour. It just wasn't that interesting to me. But man, my reflexes were just on fire. I gotta get back to that. That reminds me of that.
Yeah, and
I found the same when I switched to 132. And it wasn't an immediate switch from HO to 132, but when you drive on 132 in very close to standard spec, it's sedate by comparison. And yeah.
All those corners just come a lot slower to you, and all the guys that do both are the best in our club, and I kind of think that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, I found it the other way with radio control. If you do the slot car scene and you're good at, and you're competitive there, then when you get into radio control, everything seems slow, and your reflexes are really good at radio control speed.
I guess we'll be great F1 drivers if we just go big enough.
Yeah, we wish. We wish.
And like Chris was saying, these are the slow HO cars, and they were still requiring those, much faster reflexes than I was accustomed to, with my 1/32 scale. So, maybe when I go back on, next Monday to race with the 1/32 guys, maybe my reflexes will be on fire. Probably not, but maybe, I'll have some benefit to having done that. But absolutely, yeah, and for sure. So I think that's all my stories. I'm sure there are other ones that I could tell in private. So you're pointing to someone. Who else had something they wanted to show or talk about?
How long were you there, Greg? Total. How long were you there?
Okay, I flew in on Tuesday, which was not any kind of racing or practicing day. It was just me getting there early for a cheaper plane flight. The tracks were open for practicing on Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday night was the digital race. Friday was the individuals race. Saturday was the rally race. And then I went back home on Sunday. So Tuesday to...
Mm-hmm. Well, no wonder you OD'd.
Oh yeah, and of course Mike wanted to practice on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, right? I'm like, no, I'm done. If I go back, which is unlikely, but if I go back, one of the other issues of the situation was that me and Charlie were in a B&B that happened to be in the boonies past Timbuktu in this area, and it took us a half an hour to get from the venue, his house, to our B&B. And of course, Charlie is Mike's boy, basically. He's like on Mike's team, more or less. So Charlie had to be there until pretty late, making sure he had great cars for him and Mike, and that they were running right, and then be there bright and early the next morning. So we weren't leaving until late for me, super late, crashing in the bed at the B&B half an hour later, and then getting up bright-eyed and bushy.
Sparrows, yeah.
Every single day of the week.
Well, welcome to the life of a pro driver, son.
Or somebody who works. I don't want to do that anymore. So no. So next year, if I were to go back to this event, I would get a hotel as close to the venue as possible. That if I could walk to it, even better. If I can't walk to it, rent a car so I can leave whenever the hell I want and come back whenever the hell I want. fly in on the day before racing, not 2 or 3 days before the actual racing, and then leave the day after, which I did.
So what you're basically saying is next time you'll spend some cash.
I spent quite a bit of money anyway.
Yeah.
Every meal was out, so
Yeah.
nothing. It wasn't sandwiches at his house. It was breakfast out, lunch out, dinner out every day of the week. That
Sounds like you need a sponsorship.
That was more than even my guts can take. Yeah, I mean, he basically sponsored me to be there. So thank you to Mike for inviting me over there, and I had a fantastic time. It was when he first invited me, I'm like, that's not my kind of racing. I appreciate the offer. But then I'm like, what are you doing, Greg? You've got an opportunity to have some fun, to do something new, and meet new people, do new things, go have some fun. So I'm like,
eat out every night.
And eat out every
morning and every lunchtime.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I'm like, YOLO, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
End of story.
Do you mind if I quickly share a picture of that huge Le Mans track?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I presume that you're seeing it now. This is a Brad's track. It's the largest one in the world. It was flown over in crates in several sections over several years. But this event was the inspiration for the disc Le Mans 24-hour that takes place in 132 scale. And the tracks are approximately the same length, within a couple of feet of one another. And a qualifying lap in the middle lane of this 8-lane circuit here takes about 11.5 seconds, whereas a very fast qualifying lap on the 32 scale is in the 14s. So even though they are as small as they are, with the wheels as tiny as they are, etc., and these cars that they race on here are nothing special. They're production cars in production form. They'll still do and they are the Tomy Turbo chassis, which is not one of the fast cars. They'll still do an 11-second lap round here, which is about, like I say, about 3 seconds quicker than a 32 scale.
That's a massive track, Wayne.
And I can believe that quite easily because it looks like there's a whole lot of fairly long straights. I mean, obviously there's a lot of turns in there too.
Yeah. There's a 90 here and here, Indianapolis and Arnage. There's a straight to the beginning of the rostrum, and then you're into a series of long curves called the Porsche curves. And then you're flat down a little straight here, which is black, into the Ford chicane. And this is Dunlop curve, and that's not flat out. It is for some cars, the club night cars that we don't race on this track for the 24-hour. We do get to use on there because we all want to run them on there. And so we do that on practice day. But this Dunlop curve is not flat for the Le Mans cars. But it's, this is flat. This one is flat. And this one is also flat for HO, where it's not flat. For 32 scale, you have to lift for that because 32 scale, it's all made in Ninco track, which has got limited radius curves.
Yeah, so the purple track, the Mini KSR, I was happy to get 11.5 seconds on that track. There was like you saw, there were some straightaways, but there was so much technical on that track that for a lot of it, I'm just kind of going like this, waiting for my car to get from where I was going fast to when I can next go fast, and then I would go fast again. Of course, those like you saw in the A main, they were. Those guys were actually driving those sections where I was just trying to get my car through it without coming off. Oh, since I haven't addressed this already, before I'll get to you, Chris, but since I hadn't pointed this out, I'm wearing mutton chops today because one of the guys at the race, Chain Drive, aka Charlie, not the Charlie that I was hanging out with, had these fantastic mutton chops, and I'm just like, bro, those props on those mutton chops. So when I woke up this morning, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wear some different facial hair. We're going to pay some respects to Chain Drive, and I'm going to wear some mutton chops. I will not be wearing the mutton chops.
So what you're saying is next there's going to be a meerschaum pipe or something?
You're going to dye one red, one yellow, and one blue?
When my wife gets home, she's going to take one look at me and say, no. And it's
chop the chops, man. Chop the chops.
The chops are coming off. But yeah, sorry. Had to get that in there for Charlie. Chain Drive, great guy. I was better than Charlie as far as keeping the car on, but he's a fun guy. Chris, what were you going to say? Sorry. Are you still there? You're muted.
I don't know how.
Now.
There you go. Go ahead, Chris.
No, that was Frank.
All right. Well,
that was me. I was going to say, I don't know how long you've been married, but you might as well shave those before she gets home.
No, she's seen my hair thing often enough that it's not going to be a problem. You know, if you watch a few videos back, I had the Hulk Hogan going on. I was doing that, and her reaction will be basically the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to ignore it, to be honest.
I've already ignored it because I don't feel like I'm wearing mutton chops right now. So then I look at myself in the camera. I'm like, oh yeah, you have that stupid facial hair.
You must be, because all I can think of is mint jelly.
Okay,
Greg, I think what you should do is tell her that you refuse to engage in the use of barbaric instruments.
A little bit late for
Just
that.
shave it off.
The ones that I use to make this happen.
No, to shave the rest of it off.
She'll say, okay, use the ones that you use to make it. Anyway, so we're done talking about my facial hair. We've still got
to move on to Frank. We got to look at Frank's stuff behind him. It's awesome.
All right, Frank, time for show and tell.
Well, first I've got to apologize for putting those squigglies on your share there, Greg. I'm learning the system here. Let me flip the camera around.
There we go.
And there's the workbench. That's a current project there. But my collection kind of wraps around what I call the track room. My wife still calls it the garage. And there's different.
That's Frank. That's nice. So nice.
Thank you.
Well, she's right to call it the garage. It's still got plenty of cars parked in it.
Yeah. Well, good point. Good point. You know, this is the one wall away from the track. And then I have a grandson, so I've got ride makers on the top. And this one has most of my race cars for Far Out and for Big Lou's, Culver City. And then as we switch around, there's part of the track. That's a heater in the corner. Believe it or not, it does get a little chilly here during the winter for a couple hours.
You know what? I love the not only the layout, but what you've done with your scenery and the.
Thank you.
If it weren't for the garage door, you wouldn't know it was a garage.
Exactly. My daughter made this for me. The name of my track, Guido's Grand Prix.
Guido, are you Ukrainian, Polish, Russian?
No. Middle name is Guido. It's Italian.
Okay, that's what I thought, because that's Eastern European for granddad as well. So I just thought I'd let you know.
Oh.
How wide is the track there? It looks like your table is 5 feet deep there.
Yes, it is. I made it 5 feet because I like the R4 curve here on the right.
You got a grabber for that back straight?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's called a grandson.
He's too young yet. He can barely make it to the middle of the track, but yeah. And then it was digital, and I sold all that, and I went to a 3-wire, hooked it up myself.
Yeah.
Did the wiring, and then I got hey, why is that a blue screen?
Uh-oh.
That's not supposed to be blue. There it is.
There you go. Yeah, I just have to wiggle the mouse.
Exactly. And with the track mate.
What are you powering it with, Frank?
Let's see here. I never remember names and stuff. Oh, an MFJ.
Nice.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I have a lot of fun out here. Do a lot of building here on the workbench. But thank you for letting me to show all that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for showing.
Fantastic.
And like you said, you sold off all the digital. I love digital too much to sell it off, but I did make this switchable between analog. So red and yellow have analog hookups, and I just flip a switch and it's an analog track.
Well, after I had to buy 3 power units because I was running my magnetic cars from Big Lou's, who have 25, 30K motors, and blew them out and had to replace them, I said, I don't run digital enough to keep blowing them.
Yeah.
So that's why I went to the analog only.
Yeah, I was using analog mode on my digital base for a while, but when you have an analog club that's used to using their own controllers, they don't want to use digital controllers. They want their controllers. So
they want to be able to control their controllers. Absolutely.
Yeah. So and analog hookup was not something I could not do. I had to do it, otherwise they would not be coming home. And I'm like, well, I like it too, so might as well.
Right. Why not?
Good stuff. Yeah. So is your I assume you're using a tablet or a phone there?
Right now, yes.
Yeah. So you can do screen sharing from a phone or a tablet, a little bit from a computer, but when you're working on projects, if you're taking pictures with whatever, it's a lot easier to do a screen share of pictures on your in your browser or your photo viewer or whatever it is from your device. So that might be something we play with before or after a meeting, so you get good at.
Sounds good for next time.
Yeah. So we look forward to seeing progress on your John kits, and anything else anything else you want to show and share. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Speaking of show and share, since we have a few more minutes left, well, almost half an hour. Anybody else got anything they want to show and share?
Yeah, I do, Greg.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Okay. It is on. Takes me a moment on the computer. So I now need to move. How do I move that bar?
Oh,
like that.
You might be able to.
Yeah. So I was going to show you my tire truer because I have a problem and I can't resolve it. I know you can see everything I'm doing here, and I'm going to scroll this far too far.
As long as there's not anything incriminating.
No, there's nothing there that's going to be embarrassing. Okay, so here we go. Starts here.
Oh, you got it. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll come to that in just a moment. You will see. Right. So the opening comment is: can anyone see a problem?
That screw is going to make it go down on one side more than the other.
Well, that's the design and the way that the thing functions. If I give you another picture, you'll see how it functions a little better. Now you probably need to go back and identify that there's a sprung plunger underneath this carriage. Okay. So that holds the carriage up against the underside of the pressure screw. Yep. And the pressure screw, this picture, I've just run a piece of tape across there so that I've got a pointer. Sure. Since I started to use it, I've worked out that the correct way to use it and get 2 tires the same size is actually to release this one, and then that one retains its setting. Release this one, and then work the opposite tire, winding this one down until you get to the end point that you had on the other tire. The reason I need to do that is because, as I showed you in the first picture, which you might not be able to see, the axle is not horizontal. It's not level with this base. There's actually a slope, and it's high at the right-hand side.
Well, it's kind of tough to see in the photo, but we believe you.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty common problem with those kind of truers. Not that
I have an
particular
Area
make.
51 that does the same thing.
Yeah.
The RSM. This is I've been to the Overdrive website, and I can find an RSM3 and I can find an RSM4, but I can't find an RSM 3.1 like what's on mine. The difference between an RSM3 and a 4 is that this moved. Instead of being here on a 3, it went over the belt and became here on a 4, and I've got a label that says 3.1. So what the difference is between my 3.1 and a 4, I've no idea. Perhaps they've resolved the issue. And the issue arises because the whole thing is a single billet piece, machined piece. As you can see, there's no way I can change the height of this pin by either shimming or removing shims. And likewise the other side. That carriage rotates about this pin, and this pin is locked in place with a grub screw that you access from the underside.
What is the measured difference between the right and the left side?
That was what was difficult to ascertain. So now you can see it in pieces. That's the pin. I've got an answer for you, Greg, and I'll get to it shortly. It passes through the side here, through, and into said hole, which is just a resting support. The sprung plunger is now fully up, and I used these wheels, plastic wheels, on a. It's from a Skeletrix McLaren MP412C, and I did this. I stripped the block of its abrasives, which are meant to be glued to these top surfaces, and I used this coarse whetstone, metallic whetstone it is, to take the ribs away from these wheels. And then because they're firm, I can use the vernier caliper and put a good vernier feel on there and get an accurate, repeatable dimension. Obviously, my axle bushes are a little bit loose on this axle, but the belt is pulling the axle always away from me. And as you can see, I'm beginning to take the wheel rib away. And I'm doing now the same on the opposite side, as the machine is intended to be used. And when I'd finished that process, I established that there was a 0.3 millimeters diameter difference between the two.
Well, that doesn't really say anything.
What I did do as part of that process of disassembly to show you it disassembled was actually flip the carriage upside down, just in case there was a bend in one of these legs. And if I flipped it upside down, you would expect the reversal of the error, but it didn't. It didn't. I've managed to get the error both ways up, which suggests to me that the carriage is perfect.
So which side is larger?
The right side is the larger side.
That's the side where there is the set screw from underneath on the pivot pin.
That's correct. Yes.
Ah.
I'm obviously holding that. Yeah. How much slop is there in that hole? I know where you're heading. So what you're suggesting is that I'm holding that pin in the top of the hole with that grub screw, and I'm not doing the same on the other side.
Correct.
I might try and shim that area then. See if I can get that down.
0.3.
If I get it, it's a lot though. It's a lot.
Well, it's 0.15 on radius. If it's 0.3 on diameter, then it's 0.15 on the height.
So
yes, it is.
One layer of sellotape, basically.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I could perhaps get that. I could perhaps improve that. Thanks very much for that. I purposefully set this axle up with the pulley in the center and the wheels virtually equidistant, as good as I could, which is why I didn't use an inline axle, which I can get an inline axle on there, but the crown's in the way, so you end up running it offset one left or right. Mm-hmm. But to make things as as measurable and accurate and repeatable as possible, I did it with this. And then what I decided to do was get some of those foam rings that Dennis kindly provided and make some inserts to replace those plastic ridges. So here I am, gluing 3 of those side by side, just using this Tamiya box wrench, which some of you may recognize as a mandrel to get alignment through the center hole. And I carried on taking the wheels down till there was nearly nothing of that ridge.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah. And then gluing the
foam to the center, and then
the foam. Yeah.
So I'm wondering. Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, Wayne.
Yeah, I was. So I took this. Oh, it's just warned me that my internet connection is unstable. Let's hope we can carry on.
Yeah,
I took this.
Wayne, you might have to repeat the last couple sentences there.
I was just saying that things were going slowly for me. So then this picture is, I took this Dremel bit and ran it through the center of the foam, and then I took this Dremel bit and ran it through the center of the foam, gradually getting bigger until I managed to make the hole in the middle about 12 millimeters in diameter instead of about 8. Then I sliced the insert into half and installed it on my wheels, which are now 15.6 diameter. And what does the other bit say? Because it's covered. It's 12 millimeter ID on the insert, and there's one that there's one I've mounted, and there's one I've just finished preparing. And that was what I did with my tire truer lately. And I just wondered if anybody knew why these, well, the only one I know this is the only one I know, but I don't hear people complaining about the tire raiser or any other type being unable to achieve equal results on left and right.
Yes. Oh, yes. I've got one that does.
Okay. Sorry, Greg?
Can I offer my thoughts now?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm wondering if, obviously they've gone through some iterations of that design. And I'm wondering if that, 0.01 degree angle or whatever it is on that shaft is intentional because of the sprung pin on one side and the screw on the other side, and the expectation that will straighten it during the truing process. So maybe the version 4 fixes that, right? And you got a 3.1, and it sucks to be you that it's got that offset. And you're asking about the tire raiser. Absolutely, I've got one side that trues before the other side, and I tried to adjust it, and I'm thinking there might be some Loctite in there, and I haven't gone through the process of trying to loosen up the Loctite, because on the tire raiser there's 2 bolts that you should be able to adjust just minutely in order to put one side up or down or whatever. The screw is in the center because of that tendency. I was one of I wasn't the first, but I was one of the early tire raiser users. I made the instructional video for John. And one of the things that I being one of the early ones, helped him realize was that if the face on the bottom of the screw that mates with the plate that it's pushing down isn't absolutely perfect, it will make it go up and down on the sides, because it's if you got just the tiniest little angle on the bottom of that screw that got chopped off, then as you screw it, one side is getting pushed down more than the other, right? So he went through iterations to try to resolve those kind of issues. So my opinion is that they're working through issues like that. You have a version with that issue, and you are doing what is necessary to work around that issue. Can you fix it? Probably not. You're going to have to keep doing what you're doing, because
what I am doing is mainly working on the left side.
Yeah, and when I use my tire,
exactly,
because I haven't been able to get both sides to be even because of the Loctite or whatever the situation is, it's not letting me turn one or the other, one way or the other. One side is more than the other, so I usually end up turning my whole axle around in order to get the other side more even. Yes. And I'm not getting an offset caliper or doing any super tight measuring. And sometimes when I put a car on Alan's track with that 50-foot straightaway going at top speed, the tail wags a little bit, but it still goes fast, so I'm happy with it. So, am I going to be winning any national competitions? No, but I'm doing what I can with the machine that I have. Can you fix that? Do you have a machine shop?
Well, can you fix that with a 3D printer? Fix the offset in the slide, and then adjust how much is on the left versus how much is on the right, and fix that pitch. I was going to do that. I just never got around to it.
I don't think it's so. Not with my tire raiser. for Wayne's thing, the amount that it needs to be adjusted is much too small for any 3D printer to do anything to.
Anything.
Maybe a shim under one of those metal whetstones, but even then, what I would do if you were going to make any substantial changes to the machine itself is that I would tap a thread for another set screw, like the one that's underneath. I would tap one in through the top, and so that I had set screws on both sides of that shaft, and then you can move the shaft up and down, and then you can actually adjust exactly where you want.
And you could even bore out that.
You could even open the hole up a little bit. Yeah.
That way you can actually adjust. And because you might not, even if you did tap another set screw from the top, you might not be able to adjust it enough. So you'd have to bore out that axle shaft.
Well, you don't want to bore out the thing too much. But what I would do would be to put two flats on the shaft.
Yeah. But the carriage rotates around the shaft, so you can lock the shaft.
Yeah.
And I think the first attempt is just going to be to try and fill the roof of the hole, or enlarge the diameter of the shaft on one side and install it the right way up to get the shaft to be as low as possible in the hole on the right. And we'll see whether or not I'll certainly do that. And then I'll feed back and let you know whether that's been successful. Might even use a piece of metal shim stock if I can find some.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have
0.15 millimeters is 6 thousandths? Yeah, there you'll find some.
Piece of paper.
Piece of paper, yeah.
Yeah, that might be, yeah. Thanks for your input, guys. That is something I haven't yet thought of.
Tissue paper.
Regular printer paper is about 6 thousandths or so. So that should be.
Yeah, about 0.1 millimeters or something like that.
Do I have time to ask a question?
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
John had mentioned something when you were talking about the loosening of the body screws on the HO cars, that you did something on 1/32 scales.
He was harkening back to something that Chris has told us about a few times, where you use silicone grommets, basically the O-ring,
or urethane, yeah,
or urethane, tiny little O-rings, but between the chassis and the body mounting post where the screw goes through, to basically be shock absorber.
Yeah, it's a dampener. It dampens the vibration of the body. On the chassis.
So you get dampened.
Gotcha.
But the float is still there, so it's more controlled.
The float's still there, but then.
Yeah. In fact,
exactly. It also makes the car quieter.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually. And is Chris still here, or did we lose him?
We lost Chris. Oh, Michael, are those what you've got in your hand there?
Looks like he's got them. So the reason, so
Michael. So
for the next EMSA series, the Analog Club, we're racing MR slot car Porsche 911 GT1s.
Nice.
Which I'm having to buy a new car and do another paint job. I'm going to have one of the other guys do a paint job this time. But the rules don't allow those O-rings, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick up some. And I was wondering, I don't know, Dennis, or maybe somebody else can answer the question. Is there anything else that I could do? I mean, obviously you got the O-rings. They're gonna go between the pod and the body, and the pod and the chassis, and then the body and the chassis. Is there anything else that might enhance performance in a positive way that doesn't cost an arm and a leg? I mean, it's going to be a stock Mr. Slot car, Porsche 911 GT1, O-rings. They're in my car already.
Stock tires?
Oh, Skill Auto yellow foamies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna glue, true, and glue coat the front tires.
Yeah, you could, if you wanted to put an independent axle in the front, that probably helps too.
Yeah, that's definitely not allowed, but I think coating will probably do.
Coating is the next best thing.
Does the GT1 have independent axles? The McLaren does.
I mean, no, it doesn't. That would be something that you would add on if you wanted to. Does
The reason I asked is because mine does. The one that I got, this one.
Really?
Has independent front axles.
Does the white kit come with that? Because I don't know. I don't think so. Because I don't remember the white kit having independent front.
Neither of my McLarens have had independent axles.
Did you get that secondhand, Mike?
No, I got it fresh out of the box from Alan.
Interesting.
I'll pull it off and show you.
Maybe he gave you the wrong car, Michael.
Yeah, he gave you his tuned up car.
If it's really fast, it probably is the wrong one.
Probably.
Is the axle in two pieces in that car?
Well, what they have is a stub axle.
Yeah.
With a mushroomed end. Oh, and I did it again. It's got three screws in a line, and I keep doing the slotted thing with a single screw at the back.
Yeah.
I put the link to those in the chat window.
Thank you.
I picked those up like 2 weeks ago when you guys have mentioned them. My only problem with them is I can't figure out how to get them on the body without the front one falling off. Like do you guys glue those to there, or what do you do?
Put a little bit of adhesive.
I'm mistaken.
A little bit
it's the Avant Flot that has that, not the.
That makes sense. Yeah.
What kind of glue? Do you just super glue, or do you use like a flexible glue?
CA will work. You just want to hold it in place.
Yeah, I was worried that the CA glue would then become brittle and it wouldn't be as effective. I was thinking like shoe glue or something maybe.
No, because it acts as a surface, and the urethane still does its job.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just
cool.
Hold it in place long enough to get it all together. What do you got there, Dennis? Is that your Mr. Slot Car? You're muted.
Yeah, that's the MR Slot Car. Porsche, and what I did was tape it.
You taped the whole thing. You completely covered the pod with tape.
Yeah, it's 2 pieces of black electrical insulation tape. Completely covers the pod. The pod is loose.
Hold it up.
The pod is loose, but then the tape dampens that, and I would think that with the foam tires that might be a good idea to do.
Do you have the washers in there too, or
no?
Because that basically does the same kind of thing that tape does.
True.
Yeah, I don't think either one are technically allowed. So probably what I'll do is put the washers on my McLaren, because we raced Mr. Slot Car McLarens a while ago. So I'll probably put them on my McLaren and just show the guys and say, yeah, maybe you want to allow that in the rules here, maybe.
Seeing as they're MR Slot Car parts, maybe they should.
We have pretty, we try to be as out of the box as possible, which is why basically everybody who's got the McLaren is having to either buy the Porsche or retrofit their McLaren with the new motor, because the Porsche has a different motor than the McLaren.
Yeah, it's got the flat 6 motor.
Yeah, so I decided I didn't want to mess around with my McLaren. I'll just go ahead and buy a Porsche. So, but yeah.
So just ask for a definition of stock.
It's box stock, out of the box, with the yellow stripe foamies, and then you can glue the front tires. That's pretty much it. A little bit of weight if you want to, but
sounds like my rule set at North Wales.
It's like we talked about earlier with the HO stuff. Rules are rules. It is what it is. You try to be within the letter, if not the spirit of the rules, and you have fun. That's
have they defined what constitutes weight?
No, we pretty much allow anything to add weight at whatever you want to use, as long as it's not more than a certain, like I think the allowable additional weight is like 6 grams or 10 grams or something like that. So no,
you could add urethane weight. That's where Dennis is going.
Yes,
exactly where I'm going.
No, that would be outside of the spirit of the rules.
No, I mean,
but not the letter.
Tape is weight.
I like that.
Exactly.
No one said we couldn't ask them dip the body, Mr. Penske. Really, seriously.
You got weight in there.
Yeah.
O-rings.
We're right into the Smoky Yannick stuff now, aren't we?
For weight,
Smoky Yannick.
For weight, are you guys using like tungsten putty? Is that the? That's the best I found.
I used, a long time ago, I went to a tire place and said, give me all your balancing weights that you're going to throw in the garbage. Half of them were steel, so they went into the garbage, but the other half of them were lead. So then I had just a butt ton of lead, and they're nicely portioned with how heavy they are written right on them.
You just melt them back down and flatten them, or you just flatten with a hammer, or you just as they go?
I mean, sometimes I'll shape them with a vise if they need to be squished to fit into a spot, but usually I'll just use like wire cutters to snip them into a.
Yeah, and Greg, they probably came with adhesive on the back, right?
Well, these were used, so they no longer had adhesive. So
yeah, but
sorry. Well, okay. If you ever feel the urge to buy new, they usually have adhesive on the back.
Yeah, but John, you don't want that double-sided foam tape in there because it raises the weight by another millimeter.
Good point.
After I ran out of secondhand tire balancing weights, I went to the store and went to the fishing department to look for lead fishing weights. And what I found was a nice coil of lead rope, essentially about 4 millimeters in diameter, nicely coiled up. So all I've got to do is straighten it out, snip a piece off, make sure it's not too big, and then it's easy to bend into whatever shape you need to, or it's lead, so it squishes quite easily in pretty much any tool that you have available to you, a set of pliers or a vise or whatever. And then I use blue tack to hold it in. So.
Yeah, I've been big on tungsten putty. It's just so expensive. I was just hoping you guys had a better alternative.
I hate.
And to your point, Jeremy, tungsten is what they use in real race cars for ballast.
I thought tungsten putty was the shit, and so I bought some slotted tungsten putty, and I'm like, oh, that's got to be great. It's heavy and it's putty, and so I can put it anywhere. I don't know how people use that stuff. It's messy and it breaks and it
crumbles. Yeah.
No,
yeah, but if you plug it in, it glows.
I'll take.
You put your fingers in there, John. You'll glow.
I mean, some people will just put blue tack in, right? Because it's dense, it adds weight. They'll just put the blue tack in, or they'll put plasticine, the British Play-Doh in the car as weight.
Well, I guess in Texas they just use bullets, right? Is that right?
Probably.
No, not as bullets are too expensive now. Nobody's using bullets for cars. Good luck.
Where's Alan Wilkinson when we need him?
I'll tell you what I've purchased for weight, and that is lead strip, and it's made for decorating glass. It's for doing lead designs in glass, and it's sticky back. It's got a peel off back. The glue on it has no thickness at all, and a 50 millimeter long piece of it weighs 1 gram. It's about 6 mil wide, and 50 mil of it is a gram. So I sometimes struggle to get even a gram in a chassis because I've got to get a whole 50 millimeter length piece, and sometimes I find myself stacking it 2 or 3 layers high, and it's only like a 0.5 millimeter thick per sheet. So you can stack that, you can place that anywhere, and it's really, really cheap and available on eBay and everywhere like that.
I mean, it's not like there aren't lots of options out there. People use golf club weight tape lead,
and I think it's the same stuff.
NSR sells various thicknesses of adhesive lead sheets,
and a number of the 124 scale manufacturers sell it as well.
Yeah, and it's not hard to find. But as far as saving money, I just pop over to the nearest fishing supply and get some of the coiled up lead. That is our show for today. We are at the 2-hour mark. We will continue chatting as always. If you're an HO guy or any scale guy who thinks that we're giving all kinds of terrible information, you want to come and correct us, come to a live chat and join us and tell us about how we're wrong in every way, shape, or form, and we'll be happy to have you here. Otherwise, until next time, everybody say bye-bye. Bye.